Okay, good morning. Welcome, everyone. So this is the fourth in our lecture series, and again, it's going to be in two halves, so we'll have sort of 30, 40 minutes and about the same again, so we'll probably be finished by about 11:30. It's being recorded, so you can revisit it if you like. We're looking at today the environment and sustainability, which is obviously a big thing for all of us. Let's just start off just a couple of, because this is one of those examples of a wider context, within which our practice fits. Yeah. How do we, just a couple of thoughts, how do we engage with this context then in our practice, in our creative practice? Anyone got anything to put in the chats just to get the feel of what we might be looking at? Great. Yeah, that's a good one. Excellent. Gabriella, well done. Yeah, reusing materials, absolutely. Yeah, I'm shocking with my waste, my drawing. I'm just very embarrassed. So I keep, yeah. Khadija, conservation, yeah. So many ways we can work in conservation. Advertising it, working creatively with it. Yeah, getting the message out there. Good one, Amanda. So using art as a voice, yeah. So all these things are absolutely all these things. There's so many ways, aren't there? It fits into practice, from the practicalities to the actual message delivery. Absolutely right. Yeah, good. Okay, so the first bit is just a little overview of some of the sort of general areas that we might look at. So yeah, kind of overview of the practices, these first 10 slides or so, some of the sort of considerations. So we can go back and look at some of the really basic kind of ideas, and one of them is the ready-made. Okay, so Duchamp, our genius of 20th century art, reusing, just putting a bicycle wheel or a toilet up there and saying this is beautiful. It's completely recyclable, reusable, no great drain on the environment. However, what we do have now are people like Anish Kapoor. I've nothing personal against him, but sculptures such as this, this is Cloudgate, huge metal sculpture, which, amazing amount of resources to make. And, it's that thing about, is the message worth it? Is the benefits of a massive, great sculpture like this that uses loads of materials and is not great for the planet, is the message, does that override, I suppose, the harm that's done by making these things? That's one of those sort of things that you need to sort of balance up. Yeah. And then in the 60s, we had lots of people reusing collage. So it's not new, this idea. It's always been there within art practice, I think. The reusing, the recycling. And, not only is it a good thing, but it's aesthetically fantastic as well. Some of these old used materials are beautiful things, just through aging. So it's a win-win, isn't it? It's a beautiful thing and it's not using up, and it's reusing stuff, so not damaging the environment too much. And then we could argue that something like photography of the everyday, is a really good sort of message giver, I suppose. So Martin Parr's work is simple photo of a cup of tea. It's environmentally fine. It's simple. It just brings your attention to the moment, that everyday moment. So it's not about using lots of resources. It's not about, yeah. So you could argue that that's a positive kind of approach. And then recently we've had Tracey Emin's example, like Tracey Emin's My Bed, which again is just the everyday, reusing it and putting it in the gallery and saying this is art. So no great drain on the environment at all, really. Mike Nelson, very similar, Asset Strippers from 2019. So looking at just farm implements, often discarded in fields, sticking them in the gallery and saying, these are great artworks in themselves. I don't need to do anything. So this is Duchamp's ready-made, updated, isn't it, by Mike Nelson. But then we have these bigger interventions, bigger conceptual pieces using recycled materials. This is Ibrahim Mahama's piece from 2019 in Milan. It sort of covered these monuments with these sacks. Reference to global transaction, how capitalist structures work. So Milan is a real sort of capitalist, economically vibrant center, fashion, etc. So there's a big statement here about the sacks that we use to transport things, or the primitive nature of sort of packaging within some cultures. And of course, within design is an area we'll be looking at quite a lot. This is Yasmina Q, which is the Saudi Arabian rooted fashion house. And in their mission statement, this might be a bit out of date. I'm not sure if they still exist, but they did a couple of years ago. But an example of a fashion house which was trying hard to do its best, I suppose. So by supporting fair workers' wages, pay back into training programs and apprenticeships, support individuals displaced by difficult circumstances, working on a system that could build foundations for the future and the future of the skilled workers who we support and train. So very much about the people, you know, the community of workers, the community of the business, rather than the main thing is to make lots and lots of money, or to be kind of like incredibly sort of famous or well known. Yeah, so that's how the design systems can tap into being sustainable, environmentally friendly. And then, as we said in our earlier chat, that idea of getting the message out there. Amanda said that, you know, get the message out there through posters and stuff like that. So in graphic design, advertising, there's lots of opportunities to work with environmental messages. This is this award-winning poster created for the Malaysian Nature Society. Highlights the devastating effects of deforestation. Cut a tree, kill a life. So we've got the tree being cut, the blood coming out of it, and this sort of simple sort of face, the eye. So the tree being a living thing. Yeah, it's a very simple graphic design. And then companies who produce stuff. This is Sugru, who produce a sort of like a putty glue, moldable glue, yeah, which you can use to mold around things, to glue things back together, to make things good. So just rather than put them into landfill, you can just prolong their life by using this product. So these are the sort of products that the future kind of holds, I hope and think. And then obviously in architecture, it's huge, isn't it? So this is Calatrava's Museum of Tomorrow in Rio de Janeiro. Sustainable design, adjustable fin-like solar panels, so it's energy from the sun. Pumping system that takes cold water from the bottom of the bay for its air conditioning system. So yeah, quite progressive thinking in terms of the function of the building and the materials used in the structure. And you know, it's fair to say that all building projects really have some sort of built-in sustainable considerations, most anyway. Obviously in different cultures, it's different in different cultures depending on what's around, but generally it's a big thing for architectural design. So what are the key environmental issues that we should be aware of and respond to as creative practitioners? So this is just an overview really of those big issues, environmental sustainable issues that not just for us, but for the world. Okay, so we'll just remind ourselves of what they are. We've got food waste. So that's a big one, isn't it? And just a few facts about that. A third of the food intended for human consumption is wasted or lost. I mean, some of these things are not very, a bit, sorry, it's difficult stuff, isn't it, this to take on board. So 1.3 billion tons of food wasted or lost, enough to feed 3 billion people. So, yeah, I mean, it is pretty shocking. Accounts for 4.4 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions. So yeah, this is pretty shocking stuff. Loss of biodiversity, so that's something we know about. Decline of an average of 68%. Population sizes of mammals, fish, birds experienced a decline of average 68% between 1970 and 2016. The biodiversity loss is a lot of factors: change of land use, conversion of habitats, forests into agricultural systems, grasslands, mangroves, those kind of places into agricultural systems to feed the planet in not a very efficient way, as we've just seen, because so much of it goes to waste, and there's so many people who need that waste and don't get it. So it's a really complicated one to resolve. I'm not saying any of this is easy. I'm just saying that these are the sort of big issues. Plastic pollution. 11 million tons of plastic make its way into the oceans every year, harming wildlife habitats and the animals that live in them. If no action is taken, this will grow to 29 million metric tons per year by 2040. So, we do see changes, don't we, in the sort of materials people are using, the recycling and stuff. So it's slow, gradual change. And we just got to hope it comes quickly enough. Deforestation, which is another thing about lack of biodiversity. Every minute, forests the size of 20 football pitches are cut down, which I find extraordinary. By the year 2030, the planet might have only 10% of its forests. Agriculture, the leading cause of deforestation. So growing food to feed the population is why this is happening. Air pollution. WHO shows that estimated 4.2 to 7 million people die from air pollution worldwide every year. 9 out of 10 people breathe air that contain high levels of pollutants. So, yeah, mainly from vehicles, cars, exhaust. That's the main reason for air pollution, particularly in the bigger cities where the problem is most extreme. Agriculture. Global food system responsible for up to a third of all human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. 30% comes from livestock and fisheries. Crop production releases greenhouse gases such as nitrous oxide through the use of fertilizer. So obviously, gosh, the way forward, isn't it, is us not to be eating meat or fish and not to use fertilizers. I mean, that's a huge move for us, but that would solve a lot of problems. Yeah. And the big one, global warming from fossil fuels. Increased emissions of greenhouse gases have caused temperatures to rise. Yeah. And we've seen that through various devastating fires and floods, various tipping points that the world is the climate is sort of crossing. So yeah, it's we can't hide away from the fact it's pretty bleak. We can just hope that world leaders can take some of this on really and make some change. Melting ice caps. So this is the planet's warming up. The Arctic's warming twice as fast as anywhere else. Seas are rising 3.2 millimeters per year. Predicted to decline to a total of 0.2 to 2 meters by 2100, leading to more land flooding. So yeah, ice caps melt, more water everywhere, which is a cycle of the planet warming up. And yeah, that's that's where we're kind of heading. There is, people have been talking about this a long time. It's not something, it's very slow to action, but here's a little clip here of I mean, I think this video is quite old now, probably 5 or 6 years old, and it seems very sort of naive and sort of innocent, really. A very simple message from Greta Thunberg and George Monbiot. Very simple message, but it almost seems a bit naive, but it's kind of completely right, Anyway, let's hear Greta and George.
Our clients is breaking down. Children like me are giving up their education to paper. But we can still fix this. You can still survive. We need to stop burning fossil fuels. But this alone will not be enough. Not the solution I talked about. So what about the solution that is right in front of us? I'll let my friend George.
Yeah, okay, so a nice simple message from Greta and George there about, the simple tree being quite a, that doesn't go with our deforestation, the deforestation that's happening and the changes of habitats. These things just don't go together, unfortunately. But yeah, there are people, with the messages who are trying really hard. It's just the pace of change within politics is just incredibly slow and patchy. But yeah, so let's move on and just have a look at, if we look at, let's concentrate a bit more now. That's the kind of background, isn't it? And it's not particularly cheery. Sorry about that. But we've got lots of artists. And I think the question is probably for this lecture, how much can the visual arts do, to sort of get this message going, make change. And we've got artists like El Anatsui, who I keep coming back to, who is really important, I think, and getting more and more important and interesting. And I think I just wanted to do a little case study of El Anatsui and look at, when we talk about context, what's the context of his work, so this is one of his pieces. I've shown them before. So these wonderful hanging sort of, what would we call them? Tapestries, textile sculptures. He says, I work with materials, witnessed and encountered a lot of touch and human use. These kinds of material and work have more charge than material they've done with machines. So he's interested in the human element. This is Bleeding Takari, which I think we've seen before. Mainly made from gold bottle top caps with large patches of red, the blood that sort of falls down to the floor. So it's got a message about humanity, like struggling, I suppose, through the use of recycled materials that we kind of use every day. If we look at the context for his work, so he's from Nigeria, works in Nigeria. Here's Lagos, which is a huge, a big city, really, really lively, colourful, lots going on. So yeah, Nigeria, multinational state. We're 250 ethnic groups speaking 500 distinct languages. Most populous country in Africa, 7th most populous in the world, 210 million inhabitants. And has the largest economy in Africa, 24th largest in the world. So this is where Natsui lives and works. So surrounded by lots of issues, lots of considerations, lots of different people, lots of ethnicities. And that means he's tapping into some of the traditional Ghanese symbols, actually, because I think he's Ghanese who now lives in Nigeria. So these are the symbols here, Adinkra and Sibidi, maybe. So a combination of traditional Ghanese symbols in his work. So he's kind of raiding the past, these kind of like these cultural symbols. So Sibidi, I think you might say that, wide vocabulary of signs imprinted on calabashes, brassware, textiles, wood sculptures, masquerade costumes, buildings, and on human skin. These here, I mean, they're great. I love them. They're great symbols. And then Adinkra, these represent concepts used in fabrics, logos, and pottery. So he's got some beautiful symbols here that he's combining in his work. Recycling is in the context of, as well as bottle caps, he uses lots of found materials, railway sleepers, driftwood, iron nails, printing plates. So this is kind of go-to materials and resources are that stuff that's hanging around him in Nigeria, and huge areas for recycling and dumping rubbish and stuff. So he's raiding those for his materials. His use of recycled African materials highlights that there are some places in the world where people have to reuse materials out of necessity rather than as a choice. So yeah, he's sort of saying, actually, we're not doing this just because we've been told to by environmentalists. Actually, in our community, we need them. And obviously, somewhere like Nigeria is low down on the carbon footprint list of countries compared to the developed countries, which are far higher up the chart. So yeah, he hasn't just turned something discarded into something beautiful. The use of bottle caps hints at broader topics such as global consumerism and its history, including slavery. And then his African history, so he's tapping into that more generally. Here's a detail of a piece called Wall from 2010. And he says, I saw the bottle caps as relating to the history of Africa in the sense that when the earliest group of Europeans came to trade, they brought along rum, originally from the West Indies, that then went to Europe, falling to Africa as 3 legs of the triangular trip. So these are the kind of things he incorporates in his work. And this cloth as well is pretty fascinating. You can see the kente cloth there being worn by the women here, and his work resembles the patterns of this cloth. So yeah, he's changing the textiles, cloth, and patterns into sculptures. This is Between Earth and Heaven here, lovely piece, 2006. So yeah, he wants to keep alive the creative traditions. So again, that idea of sustainability is about working with history, I guess, and working with materials and the people of the past to sustain a sort of sustain a culture. And obviously environmentalism, we could say his connection to environmental art is through the recycled materials, bottle tops, discarded materials, to make these beautiful sculptural pieces. And that, I think this is one of the most interesting things for me, that actually some of the stuff he recycles often resemble gold or silver. Yeah, and that idea that these are very, very important, special. Well, it's not gold or silver. Gold or silver is a kind of currency for more sort of capitalist economies, isn't it? I guess, with their idea of wealth. But here we've got these things are a different type of value. Okay, valuable within the environment they're sourced, valuable within Nigeria, within that culture. So that's very interesting, I think. So there's an example of an artist who's pretty much really seriously engaged, I suppose, in thinking about materials and recycling and the environment and making beautiful things. I mean, whether, the issue is obviously whether when we look at El Natsui's work in the gallery, we really think about the environment and we kind of make changes, and it makes us think more deeply about environmental concerns. I don't know. I think that's probably asking quite a lot of visual arts practice, because the audience isn't that huge, I guess. And here's the piece at the Tate in last year, actually 2023. Fantastic big hangings. It was called Behind the Red Moon. Thousands of metal bottle tops and fragments, crumpling, crushing, and stitching them into different compositions. These massive abstract fields of color. These were really dark, these ones. Viewing the hangings from afar, a landscape of symbols: the moon, the sail, the wave, the earth, the wall. Yeah, the past and present of Africa and Europe merged together and hang in the air. So yeah, if you get a chance to see El Natsiri's work, it's really, really impressive. Okay, let's jump into a different world. So let's look at the world of fast fashion, which is often, viewed as a pariah, but don't we all dip into this? It's difficult not to. It's completely embedded within our culture here, really. So it's a term you might have described. It's a profitable business based on copying catwalk trends, mass producing them at a low cost. And here's an example of a huge warehouse with a lot of clothes. It does, of course, provide opportunities for economic growth, but the entire fashion industry hinders sustainability efforts by contributing 20% of waste water, which is pretty huge. And these facts are, could be fact checked. I'm not saying they're absolutely accurate. Fast fashion has been said to be responsible for 10% of global gas emissions, which I find hard to believe. It's quite a shocking stat. That's a lot of global gas emissions. So here we've got a huge recycling of fashion, and here's these kind of what we call like sweatshops, a horrible term, isn't it? But people working on low wages, often in like Bangladesh, India. And here at the bottom is a really good example of here's the fast fashion copy of this $50 dress. Here's the 60-cent dress, which is almost absolutely identical, but has its problems environmentally, I guess. Maybe it's made of a different cloth. The worker who made it's paid much less. All these kind of things contribute to the fact this isn't as healthy an item as this one, but obviously this one costs more money. Yeah, so we have to balance out, isn't it? Okay, because of the widespread knowledge of such issues and the recent focus on sustainable fashion and ethical fashion, most companies, are now much more conscious of their responsibilities. The term slow fashion has now emerged as a label for designers and companies consciously trying to deal with these issues. And this is these kind of, we can see on this poster here, sustainable, ethical, healthy, trusted clothes, the sort of the pipe mark or the sign, the green tree, the recycled arrows, the leaf. So another really good poster which states our position and our interests quite clearly. 10 reasons to choose slow fashion. Reduces waste. So slow fashion, we're talking about higher quality garments. So the big issue really is that slow fashion costs a lot more. Than trying to get the public to buy better quality clothes, which they care for better and keep for longer. But the problem is we've got a capitalist system that through advertising encourages people to buy more, and fashion seasons and trends encourage regular changeovers. So we're always being told to buy the latest thing, the new thing. So we want to get rid of one lot of clothes and buy another lot. So advertising within the, you know, first world cultures just drives the desire for more. So on here it says 10 reasons to choose slow fashion: reduce waste, save water, lower your carbon footprint, reduce exposure to toxic chemicals, support fair wages, support animal welfare, support small businesses, save money, save time, develop your own sense of style. So yeah, some of that you could argue with, can't you? I mean, save money. They're much more expensive, slow fashion garments, but you should probably need to buy less of them because they last a lot longer. That's the idea. Okay, so you can see the dilemma, the contradictions here within the fashion world. It is, you know, within the creative practices, the fashion world is the one which is the pariah, you know, seen as where most of the issues lie. There are, though, emerging many fashion retailers producing ethically at an affordable price. The clothes are often very simple and practical. And here we've got Pact, yeah, which is a good example. They only use organic cotton, partner only with fair trade certified factories, offer carbon offset shipping. I'm not sure that's possible. Can you use the shipping box to donate the old clothes? Okay, so yeah, it all looks good, doesn't it? It's all. We'll come on to something, some issues with this later on in the lecture, but this all looks good. This is the sort of way we should be going. Unfortunately, if you start to look at the advertising, this is like obviously focused on a very comfortable, probably quite affluent middle class family. So we're probably not going to reach with this the people who have to make hard choices about money. Again, so this will be expensive. You know, it's not cheap. But and it's a marginal side of things. But yeah. There are, though, many good examples of entrepreneurship looking to solve some of fashion's environmental issues. And this is Rent the Runway, which is an extremely successful American company and a logical kind of progression step, I guess. And they are really, and I think it's still going pretty well now. I haven't checked in the last 6 months, but I assume it's still going well. So customers can rent one of the firm's designer clothes for a 4 or 8 day period for as low as 10% of the retail price. The company, though, has the biggest dry cleaning warehouse in the world, processing 2,000 items. So again, gosh, we've got this contradiction, haven't we? Yeah, fair enough. We're not buying new clothes and we're going to reuse them. But dry cleaning, that really uses an awful lot of stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's not going to be that environmentally friendly. But yeah, it's you know, it's an idea, I suppose. It's an idea. I suppose the thing about this one, though, is if you've got 4 or 8 day periods, you have to wear it quite a few times during that. So you rent it when you've got a lot of things to go to, a lot of parties to go to over a period of time. Just make sure it's not the same people going to them to see you in the same outfit all the time. But yeah, it's a way forward. Okay, we're going to have a little break there. But what I want you to think about, I mean, I've already asked you some of these and you've come up with some good ideas, but whether you've got any more. So we'll just have a, like a 10-minute break. And just ask ourselves, if you can ask yourselves, what in our role as creative practitioners can we practically do to make a positive environmental impact? I mean, we've had Gabriella's already said reuse materials. Khadijah's talked about getting involved in conservation. Amanda's said getting the message out there. And Gabriella again saying use art as a voice to highlight issues. So we've got a few, and I'm going to come up with a few more, I think, after the break. So have a think if there are any more we can come up with. And I think after the break, we'll be looking a little bit more at design, which I think is probably the area within creative practices where most of the good can be done. Okay. Yes. Okay. So see you. We'll come back at let's just have 7 minutes. So let's come back at 45. Yeah. 10:45. I'm just going to stop the recording